Good night for everybody. Today is the first anniversary of Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo's presence among us. It is just 1 year since we started this series of interviews with her, and exactly since April 14, 2021. The date of the first interview. We have done from this date 6 interviews, one every 2 months. All these interviews are available on YouTube on Lwiis Saliba's channel. I wrote to you the name of channel, and this one also will be available in few days. And their full text in English, French, Spanish, German, Arabic, and Italian are available to everyone on Dr. Jacqueline website and also on mine, on website Lwiis Saliba. And they will be published in a book in French, English, Arabic, and eventually in Italian. So just a year ago, Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo opened this series of interviews by talking about human stupidity. She said verbatim, and I quote her, "We fight each other. We say, I am right, you are wrong. We fight over things that are not important, instead of working together on what it is important. We never learn from our mistakes. We blow each other up, then we take a breather and start again. If that is not stupid, tell me what is stupidity," she said. And today, and once again, we are faced with a new human stupidity and a new war. It reminds me of a famous saying of Einstein. He said, "In this world, there are 2 infinities, the universe and human stupidity. And I am not sure that the universe is infinite." In Lebanon, today's date, April 13, is an evil day. It is the anniversary of the beginning of the Lebanese war, which lasted more than 16 years and killed hundreds of thousands of people in a small country with a population of only 3 million. And now, with what is happening between Russia and Ukraine, we are in the middle of a war. And it is exactly in such difficult times that we need to hear the voice of wisdom and love, like the voice of our great sage, Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo. Jetsunma, once again, human stupidity has resurfaced, and we are faced with a new war between Russia and Ukraine. Is war, my question, is war an inevitability, a karma, what we cannot escape, or it is a choice that can be renounced?
Well, of course, throughout history, around the world, everywhere, there have been wars, not just country to country, but tribe to tribe, family to family. History itself is a chronicle about endless invasions. As long as we have that conflict in our hearts, then that is going to be emanated as conflict outside, whether small conflicts, large conflicts, it's always going to be there. It's always going to happen. So where there's anger, where there's violence and greed, lust for power and conquest, then of course there are going to be wars. I mean, no peace inside, then no peace outside. I mean, we can see it. We haven't gotten more peaceful throughout our history. You know, we haven't learned anything. We've just become more weapons, more ability to harm and to kill. Before we used, you know, bows and arrows. Now we use, you know, what we use. And so, you know, what can you say? And in addition, as you mentioned, karma, in addition, we are sowing the seeds of conflict, you know, which we're going to have to reap in the future. If you sow poison seeds, you're going to reap a poison plant.
We are not seeing you, Jetsunma. Yes. Okay.
You know, so unless human beings really undergo a joint transformation of consciousness, which they have never done up to now, we are going to be continuing the same patterns, you know? I mean, it's like in the family, there's domestic violence in the past. There is still domestic violence in the present. Hmm. And as far as we can see, it will continue into the future. You know, I mean, human beings are difficult. I mean, not to say that there are not many beautiful human beings. Of course there are, and there are many, many beautiful things happening. Not the media focuses on war, but there is also so much going on to try to help and to reach out, you know, in these difficult zones. But, you know, the fact that we continually carry out the same negative patterns, which, as you were saying, you know, so many innocent people are affected, not only those who are killed, but those who are left. And, you know, still we don't learn what to do, you know. I mean, there's no zap answer to all this, you know. It's just you look at history and you can just see the cycles repeating themselves and repeating and repeating. Every time we say, now we have learned our lesson, we will never do this again. And next thing you know, next generation, they're off again, doing exactly the same thing.
You are just telling if no peace inside, it will be no peace outside. And anger means peace. So it is a real circle. We cannot go out if still with no peace inside, because mostly people has no peace inside, and mostly they are in anger.
Yep. So, you know, I mean, until we understand that genuine strength comes from compassion and wisdom, as long as we believe that just, you know, brute force shows how big and strong and special we are, you know, it's going to be difficult, because what can I say? You know, the bullies win. And, you know, to develop genuine wisdom and compassion takes practice. Like any muscle, you have to exercise it. And if we're not exercising it, if we are instead exercising our ability to get angry, resentful, and so forth, then, you know, it's going to be difficult. I mean, you know very well, Lwiis, you look at the media, you look at entertainment. What kind of entertainment are people and young people also watching? It's all very, very aggressive and brutal. And the solution to a difficult situation is to blow it up. You know, I mean, that is the message which we're getting. That, you know, to be able to destroy others makes us special. Then what can you hope? I mean, just films and video games and all this type of thing is giving the message that the solution to our problems is to destroy the other, the opposition. Then we will be happy forever.
but to educate our
you know, I mean, what to do? I mean, our whole view of what is important and wherein genuine happiness lies is so completely skewed up. You know that. And we're completely distorted and perverted our whole understanding of what is genuine happiness. And so, you know, this false idea of happiness is given to people, and they believe it because that's what they're told by people that they look up to and think must know the answers. So, you know, this is where we end up, you know, it's conflict, nobody listening to anyone else, everyone thinking they're right and the other is wrong, and no compassion, no understanding, and just sadness, great sadness in the world, created not by the lions and the tigers, the wild animals, but by the human beings who consider themselves so superior. You know, we are Homo sapiens, right? We are wise. Where's the wisdom? I mean, innately we have wisdom. Please understand, you know, we are not by nature evil, but we are like any kind of, you know, we get our innate understanding and wisdom gets covered over and polluted. And we don't know how to clean because we think the pollution is a good thing. Because we don't know anything else about the pure gold. What to do? Lwiis, you have studied many, look at behind you, all those books and all those understanding from so many different areas. So what do you think? How can we go upwards, you know, to more light, instead of descending further and further into the darkness again?
Problem that our knowledge is only theoretical knowledge. It's not a practical knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
And what it can help when, okay, we say that we should live in peace, but if we are not in a peace with ourselves, that like you told, how we can live in peace?
Yep, exactly. But we're not living in a society that gives us peace. That's the problem. You know, I mean, there's so much outer assault on the senses, you know, which don't bring peace. Physically, there's no peace because everybody's rushing. And inwardly, there's no peace because we are not given the conduit to peace. You know, I mean, the whole time, television and iPhones and computers and everything, it's out. And we never have the opportunity to go inside. So this is our problem. And then this is what happens, you know, I mean, we just mess everything up and harm ourselves, harm others, and destroy the planet in the meantime. What to do?
Jetsunma, we have read a statement from you about this war, in which you say the suffering of the people is truly beyond imagination. However, with suffering comes strength, you say. My question, most of the times we feel that this strength comes to us only as a result of suffering. Is it inevitable to go through this to get strength?
Well, no, I mean, insofar as, you know, some people have great inner strength and they have never suffered, you know, so they bring that with them. But for many people, the point is that if we are suffering, either we can just go under and become, you know, more and more upset and angry and depressed, or we can use that suffering as a kind of strength to cultivate our compassion, recognizing just as I'm suffering, so many beings are suffering. How sad, you know, and then that makes our heart grow large and vast and all-encompassing, instead of becoming full of our own self-pity. In that case, we become very, very strong and invincible. And however much suffering we encounter, our own and others, it just is like a flame which grows stronger and stronger with I mean, one knows people like that who spend their time, you know, really dealing with others' suffering, and they are not sad. They are full of love and they are full of joy, because they have that inner compassion and that inner wisdom which shines out from them. And so suffering in itself can go either way. You know, it can lead to a sense of becoming totally absorbed in one's own misery and bitter and angry and upset and blaming others. Or it can lead to a great expansion of the heart, which is fearless and just the embodiment of genuine compassion and wisdom that goes with it, the insight into understanding. And that understanding also increases our empathy and love for others. So it goes either way. I mean, the suffering itself is neutral. What we do with it is the point.
Mm-hmm. Jetsunma, you continue to say in the same statement, I hope people rely on their innate goodness. I hope people can help each other and be in solidarity with each other in this very difficult situation. This is a time to show inner strength, not just as a member of a religion or an ethnic group, but to show your unity as a human being. My question, if people on both sides of the conflict want to stand together, but they are prevented by leaders or circumstances, so what to do?
Well, my feeling is, you know, that at least they can pray for the well-being of all involved in the conflict, right? Not just, and not speak ill of the other side. You know, we want our side to win and we want the other side to suffer. Not like that, but recognizing with compassion the suffering on both sides, and you know, wishing then and really praying from the heart that this should be resolved, and that both sides should end up with you know, peace and unity again. So when the conflict ends, then they should do whatever they can to help both sides, right? Not just thinking, or not allow themselves to be caught up in propaganda, because it's all politics, right? It's all economics and politics. It's nothing to do with people as people. I mean, people as people are just people, right? We're all human beings sharing this planet together. Who decided the divisions? This is the boundary, and this is my country, and that's your country. That's just country. I mean, it's just land, right? It's politics that create these things. So, you know, we are all equally human beings with hopes and fears and the desire to live with our family, and our family should do well and so forth. I mean, everybody's the same. So we should meditate on love and compassion for all beings, and especially if you're caught up in a conflict, for the other side, you know, that they should be well and happy. And recognize that all these politicians and military and armaments, you know, the businessmen behind the armaments who are making a fortune every time there's a war, you know, they pervert the truth for their own benefit. It's all lies that they're telling all the time. We shouldn't believe propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
So keep an open heart.
Jetsunma, you are just talking about political leaders. How far do the political leaders on all sides take responsibility of this war and its damage?
Oh, well, of course, wars are created by politicians, you know, who are intent on their own power and control, together with the military, who have to show why the people need a military, right? If they don't have wars, they can't prove why they're necessary. And then the armament manufacturers, right, who grow enormously wealthy through the death and the devastation which their products create. They don't care. The more people killed, the more it shows how effective their weapons are, right? And how more you should buy of them. So it's all driven by a greed for power and economics. It has nothing to do with a genuine situation. I mean, it's all created by these people who never themselves go anywhere near the war zones, right? They sit in their very luxurious offices and use all the people like pawns in a chess game, which can just be thrown away. Yes, we'll put that battalion there and we'll put that battalion, not thinking these are young men at the beginning of life. And they don't care however many go, as long as they, in the end, can gain a bit more land or a bit more, victory, so-called, by killing as many people as possible, including, of course, nowadays, women and children. It's not even like in the old days where you had soldiers, at least they met each other face to face with their bows and arrows and swords. And that was their choice, to be soldiers. Nowadays, it's nothing like that. You get conscripted, you never see the people that you're killing. And many of the people that you're killing are people who are totally innocent of any, involvement in the war. They just happen to be there, like all the children that get killed. Hundreds of thousands of people, innocent people, are killed for the sake of what? Because of some mandate from their politicians. And this, economic drive behind it. That's all it's about. It's nothing about, who is right or who is wrong. It's just about power. How sad. We never learn. This is what is so awful. We believe all this nonsense which the politicians churn out. And, nobody questions it. Yes, Lwiis.
Sometimes this war or any war at an event, people, they said, or it's a kind of karma. We cannot escape from it. Is it true?
Well, it's individual, isn't it? I mean, each one. The important thing is not to add to the hatred and the partisanship which is being promoted through the media. That's the important thing. It's not the good against the evil empire. They're just people who have been forced into this situation. Mostly they don't want it at all. They're not asked. They're forced to do it, right? The soldiers. And, we're dealing with people who are driven by their politicians into doing dark deeds, into killing others. It's not that they would ever choose to do that. They probably want to go to college or get on with their lives. They don't want to go around blowing people up and killing people. What for? But they're forced to. Because if they don't, then they're branded as cowards and destroyed by their own side, as happened in both of the world wars before. If you said, I don't want to kill, then you got shot by your own side. Great, left to themselves, they're just human beings like anybody else. Come on, they're not part of an evil empire. So we should have compassion for both sides of the conflict, and we should pray that it will end soon and that there will be a healing. Because, these wounds again are bleeding. What for? So pray for all sides that very soon this conflict will finish and that, they will be able to heal again and live in amity. And not plug into that dark energy, which, the media is trying to whip up, of fear, paranoia, anger, and all these negative forces in the mind. Don't allow those forces into the mind. Develop our compassion and empathy. And how sad for everyone, not just for the Ukrainians, but for the Russians too.
Jetsunma, you are just telling that they convert the truth. And always we see in the war that lie and war are...
I'll deal with this. I'll put this thing on. Just sorry,
Okay.
we've lost our. Can we put that on? We're trying to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's
good.
I was telling that you are just telling that they convert the truth, and always in war we see that war and lie. There is no truth. Why both are always both war and lying, and why truth is always with peace?
Well, because truth is a great power, but it is not. You know, I mean, lies have always. You know, the truth is that we are all human beings, and we should learn finally to live together in harmony. That is not going to earn you anything. You know, the armaments manufacturers don't want to hear about that, because then people won't buy weapons. The military don't want to hear about that, because then we won't have an army. The politicians don't want to hear about that, because then they cannot increase their territory by conquest. So nobody wants to hear the truth, which is that simply the earth belongs to us all. And by rights, there are no boundaries, right? Who made the boundaries? The politicians, the kings, you know, and so forth. They said this side is your side, that side is my side. But if you look at the earth itself, that's just the earth, right? It does. If you look at it from above, where are the boundaries? Huh?
Yeah.
So the truth is that we're all human beings, and we're all sharing this planet together. And why haven't we, after all this millennia, learned to live together? But we haven't, because it is, you know, manufactured with all these untruths. These are the bad people. Therefore, it's our right to you know, to hurt them. What can you say? You know, they are not humans like we. We are genuine good humans, and they are subhumans. Therefore, it's okay to kill them and to subjugate them and to bring them into our territory so we can teach them how to be more like us. But that's all lies, isn't it?
But in this
total
case,
nonsense.
In this case, boundaries are always there. So we are living from the beginning in an untruth as a human beings, with all these boundaries, all these countries, all this. It is an untruth. We are living in it.
Well, our whole life is basically an untruth, and we don't stop to think what is real, you know. So we create endless problems. I mean, we always have. If you read history, as you know very well, it's all about conquest and subjugation and destroying other people's civilizations and so forth. I mean, it's endless. And today we are seeing it hasn't stopped. We're just carrying on the same old thing, right? You know, like children destroying other children's sandcastles. Because their sandcastle is nicer than my sandcastle, so I'm going to destroy their sandcastle. You know, little children's mind.
Jetsunma, in this war, as in any other war, it's number 5, our question. People of good will hesitate. Should they take a stand with one side or remain neutral? So my question, what do you advise them to do?
Well, again, I mean, it's what we've just been saying, you know, that it's up to the individual what they want to do, but they shouldn't become partisan. You know, I mean, you know, they should try to keep their mind open and trying to, you know, see how much both sides are suffering in any conflict. And it's not that one is right, the other is wrong, but that, you know, both sides are adding to this this problem, this delusion that we are right, therefore you are wrong. I mean, this is one of the main problems, that, you know, it's all the right is on one side, all the bad is on the other side, but it's never like that. They're just human beings struggling and forced into doing things they wouldn't want to do, as we say, by their government. You know, so keep an open heart towards everybody. I mean, that's what we just keep saying, you know, don't get caught up in we're right, so you're wrong. But to see that it's all suffering. It's all suffering. Even whether one wins and the other loses, even the people who are victorious are suffering because they have also lost. And we are losing our dignity as human beings at the same time. So it's a very, there's nothing good to be said about war, really. It just destroys so much on so many levels, not just physical, but psychological. I mean, people never ever got over the First World War or the Second World War. They carried it inside them psychologically. You know, the damage was inside, not just the external. And that is why it's so sad that we didn't learn much lessons from that.
Jetsunma, to justify war, one often speaks of a just war, as one speaks of a just anger. The war in the Bhagavad Gita, for example, is considered by Hindus a just war because the Gita is a holy book. The Abrahamic religions go further and speak on holy war. Do you think there is a just war or a holy war?
Well, first of all, of course, the Bhagavad Gita was written from a Hindu point of view, which believes that everyone should be doing their own duty, their karma, their dharma, right? Their duty, which is according to the stage of life in which you are born. So then you get the caste system, right? So if we have to follow the same profession as our forefathers, right? And that is our dharma. We shouldn't try to do a profession which is not part of our family, because that is not our dharma, that's somebody else's dharma. So therefore, the warrior caste, the kshatriya, which is what Arjuna belonged to as you know, as a royalty, that they are warriors, and warriors therefore wage war, right? So that is his dharma. You know, that is the logic behind it, right? That he is just carrying out his dharma. The fact that both sides got completely wiped out is not a problem, because they were following their dharma. But Buddhism doesn't think like that. Buddhism says killing is killing. And that is a negative action that will create negative karmic results, i.e. more killing in the future. So therefore, you know, even if you are born into a warrior caste, it is not a virtuous thing to become, you know, go around killing other people because that's your father was a soldier. So of course there is a need sometimes to stand up to evil. I mean, undoubtedly, such as the Nazis, you know, I mean, the things they were doing, they had to be stopped. But whether waging a war the way it was waged really helped, I doubt, because so many millions of young people got killed, right? And we shouldn't glorify war. That's the thing. Even if it is a necessity sometimes, we shouldn't think it's a good thing, right? Because everyone thinks they are right and the opposition is wrong, right? So everybody thinks that they are fighting a holy war, and the other side is the evil empire. Everyone thinks God is on my side. I think God must be very confused, because everybody's praying and assuming that he's going to support them, you know, even though they're on opposite sides. Poor God. And so, you know, you've got the loss of life, including millions of people, women, children, all in the name of an ideology. That's horrible. You know, I can't possibly believe if there was a God that he would think that was okay. He'd be looking down and think, what the hell are these people doing? I created them and look what a mess they're making. How can they possibly think I approve of this and I'm on their side while they kill other beings that I also created and love, because I'm a God of love, right? How can they think like that, right? It's a specifically human aberration. You know, no other animals go around so ruthlessly killing off others of their own species, right? So, of course, Buddhist countries go to war the same as everyone else. I mean, I'm not pretending that Buddhists are great pacifists and they never go to war. Of course they do. But they don't go to war in the name of the Dharma. They go to war in the name of politics and gain and getting wealth and so forth. But they don't pretend that the Buddha would say to them, this is what you should be doing. Because nowhere in the Buddha Dharma does it say that going out and killing people and having anger and hatred is a good thing. You know, the Buddha said hatred does not cease by hatred, hatred ceases by non-hatred. And he did in his lifetime also try to stop, you know, warring factions from warring. You know, they were fighting over the river, who had rights of the river, this side or that side. And he said, well, what is more precious, blood or water, you know, and got them to come together and use their sense and not fight each other. So, you know, I think that waging war in the name of religion is the absolute pits. It's as bad as you can get, to call in something which is supposed to be about love and compassion and peace in the name of warfare, you know, and destroying others because I'm right. My God is my God and your God is wrong. It's so childish. And human beings have never really grown up. That's their tragedy.
And what about holy war in Abrahamic, in Christianity?
There is no holy war. I mean, what about the people that were killed by the Jews? They were living peacefully in their country. The Jewish God, according to them, said, oh, that's okay. I give you this country. You can go and kill all those people and it's yours. What kind of God is that? Didn't that God also create the people who were living in that country? Why is he being so partisan, so biased, so prejudiced? Because that God that is written about in the early biblical accounts was a tribal God, right? Baal was the God for that other tribe. The Jewish tribe had Yahweh. And so, you know, he was on their side. He was not on the other side because he was not the God of the other people. But now we understand, if you want to believe in God, there's a universal God who loves everybody. He doesn't have, this is my little group, but that's not my little group. And if you look at the Jewish God, well, what he did with the poor Jewish people afterwards doesn't sound like a very loving God. If that's how you show favor to your own people, I think you're better off without it. So all these Abrahamic religions get caught in this thing that ours is the real God and yours is the wrong God. And it's so childish and it's so painful and it causes so much grief and suffering. And it just doesn't help anybody, you know, because nobody listens to any other side. They're so caught up in their own narrow views of being right. And we are the chosen ones and everybody else is not the chosen ones. So we can do what we like with the other people because they don't count. What kind of mindset is that? And all this in the name of religion. No wonder people don't want religion anymore. I wouldn't either. You know, it's created so much hatred and division. And it hasn't brought about harmony and peace and love and all the things it talks about. All these religions talk about love and religion and peace and harmony and so forth. But look what they do. So, my dear, I know that you're a professor of religion, but you can see for yourself that
But
it's a problem.
Jetsunma, so Dharma do not allow war, as they told in the Gita and the Mahabharata?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, look in the Bhagavad Gita, at the end of the day, both sides got killed off. Well, what use was that? All those poor women left with no husbands, no sons, no fathers, for the sake of what? What did it solve? I mean, it was stupid war with two families, you know, the same family fighting each other. Is that an example of how we should act? I mean, personally, I think it's a very sad case.
But even in the time of Buddha, it was so many wars from the kings who are connected with the Buddha.
Yeah, but that's because they're kings and they're politicians, you know, just as many politicians think they're Christians. But look what they do, you know, it's nothing about, you know, what Christ said about love thy neighbors as thyself, you know, and forgive your enemies and all these things, which Jesus said very clearly. But who listens? And yet they think that they're very devout Christians, but they still, you know. So also in Buddhist countries, yes, people have faith in Buddha, but at the same time, they have more faith in power and wealth and exploiting your neighbor and you know, cutting off all their goods into your own country. That's because they're humans. That's not the Buddhist side, that's the human side, the greed and the aggression and the jealousy and the competition, that side, or the pollutions of the mind, which overwhelm them. So human beings are human beings. What I'm saying is that even if you have a really good ethical conduct, which everybody can understand, and it's said in very simple language, doesn't mean that anybody's going to follow it.
Jetsunma,
I mean, all religions tell us to be good, but how many people manage even that much?
Jetsunma, in your book, Daily Life as a Meditative Practice, you say in page 80, we cannot change the world, but we can transform our mind. How can we put this advice, or rather this formula, into practice, especially in this period of war? It's question number 7.
Yeah, I'm looking. You can't change the world, you can transform the mind, right? So exactly that, you know, that whatever happens, I mean, the one thing, we cannot change others. We're always putting the blame on other people, but actually we cannot change others. What we can change is ourselves. You know, that is possible, definitely. So then, for example, whatever happens to us during the day, you know, whatever situations arise, we can observe our responses, our reactions. And if the response is negative, like we get angry, upset, annoyed, or, you know, paranoid, we can recognize that is a very negative state of mind right then, right? And we can accept that's how we feel. You know, sometimes my computer does funny things and I get very annoyed with my computer. But at least I can recognize that that is coming up, that frustration and annoyance. So we accept that that's what's happening. Then we decide, we make the determination to replace that negative state of mind by a positive state of mind. We're in charge. We are not just the slaves of our thoughts and feelings. We become slowly the masters, right? So we can transform anger through forbearance and tolerance, fear through recognizing that basically it's probably just an anticipation of an unknown future event. It's not an actuality. I mean, most of our fear and paranoia is not what is actually happening right now. It's anxiety about what could happen in the future. But it hasn't happened. Right now, we're here, right? So this is the point. So we plug into this negativity, this anger and this paranoia and anxiety because of the media, right? The media is always emphasizing the negative, always telling you, oh, tomorrow this is going to be happening. Maybe tomorrow there'll be a new COVID outbreak. Maybe tomorrow there'll be a complete economic breakdown. Maybe tomorrow, but it hasn't happened yet. And they don't know. They just want to sell their newspapers and their television programs. So, you know, the thing is that also there is so much goodness in the world. Right now, there is so much beauty in the world. So many people doing beautiful, beautiful things, which totally selfless, full of love and understanding, which nobody reports on. Nobody cares. That's not news, right? Only bad things are news. So we should recognize that, you know, and we don't need to be drowned in that darkness and despair. We really don't. It doesn't help anyone, it doesn't help us, and it just increases the negative energy in the world, which is already so vast. So instead of that, we should do the opposite, right? We should do real meditations on love and compassion, send out that light into the world, really imagine the world completely surrounded by love and light and peace and all is good, and really wish it for all beings, not just our side or the people that we know and we love them, yes, but also everyone, because everybody has family, everybody has people that love them and care for them. And we should wish them all, you know, genuinely well. So this is the opportunity for practicing all these qualities of the heart, especially patience and compassion and empathy and so forth, not to give in to despair. Despair doesn't help anybody. So we can change ourselves. That's the point. We have a choice. Not so much the outer situation, but our inner response. Right? I mean, we can practice Tonglen, right? You can practice breathing in the darkness and sending out the light. You know, I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do.
You mean if we do meditation, we can help in this period of war to have more peace?
At least we're not sending out that negative vibrations. You know, we are sending out something positive into the world. I mean, the world is trapped in all this, you know, negative thinking, which doesn't help anybody. So what we need is some positive thinking. That's why, you know, in all religions, the one good thing in all religions, hopefully, is that they do pray. And that they hopefully don't just pray that my side should be successful, but that they pray that, you know, there should be happiness and peace and forgiveness in the world. You know, if we can all do that, and then we psychically connect with each other, you know, sending out goodness into the world instead of all the paranoia and hatred, which is being churned up by the media. The media wants people to be, the government wants people to be paranoid, because if you're paranoid, then you are very malleable. They will come along and say, well, we're going to make these rules so that we have more control, so that we will help you and protect you. And people give over their own you know, freedom to these politicians because they're afraid. And the politicians promise to protect them. And so it's all a big conspiracy. I mean, in the conspiracy, in the sense it's a worldwide conspiracy, all the governments are into it. That's how they get control. And they make people do things which normally nobody would want to do.
Okay. Jetsunma,
and it's always been like, oh, it's not like something new. But now, because the media comes right into your room, into your living room, right? It's right there on the television and the online, the messages being sent out the whole time, these negative messages to make people anxious and paranoid and fearful and angry and all these things. It's right there in your face. And people are listening to it, and so it soaks into people's psyche. And this is why we have to resist that by positively sending out positive thinking instead of all this negativity.
So you advise to not listen to news and media and mass media?
I think that people should listen to the very minimum and not spend their whole time glued to listening to a blow-by-blow account of what's happening in the war, which is, again, just propaganda. We know horrible things are happening. You don't have to sit there soaking it up. Would be better, rather than listening and bringing in all this negativity, to sit there and send out love.
Because always in news, it's a bad news.
Of course.
We don't listen to good news in the news and TV, and
no.
We select always bad news.
So, I mean, we have to, our mind is the most precious thing we have, our heart mind. And why are we filling it full of poison? Right? Why do we need to live in an environment of despair, of depression, of paranoia and anxiety? Why are we doing this to ourselves? This is where we live, right? Inside our own heart mind. What are we doing to our heart mind? What kind of environment are we creating in which we live? No wonder everybody's stressed.
Jetsunma, in the same book, you said in page 81, you said, we can consider the people who annoy us and cause us a lot of trouble as our best friends. It is these people who help us learn to transform ourselves. My question is question number 8. Is this the true meaning of Christ's famous formula, love your enemies?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's easy to love your loved ones, right? I mean, it's easy to love your people who are lovable. We love them, right? So that's very easy. That doesn't take anything, right? Anybody can do that. So the challenge is to recognize the innate goodness in everyone and give them love and compassion, right? Everyone means all living beings, not just human beings. It means also all the animals and the beings living in the waters and the birds and insects, and all beings want to be happy and don't want to suffer. So we give, affection to all beings. That's the point. And then in addition, we can learn patience and forbearance. This very important spiritual quality is to have forbearance. Forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. So that quality of forbearance we can only develop and cultivate if people annoy us. Unless people cause us trouble, we cannot develop that very, very special quality. So this gives us a wonderful opportunity. If people are difficult, it gives us a wonderful opportunity to practice patience. And in this way, they are our best spiritual friends, right? Because they are helping us to practice the path. That's what it means.
Okay. You say in the same book, Jetsunma, on page 87, one of the facets of Buddhism that distinguishes it from other religions is that it not only tell us to love our neighbors as ourselves, it tells us how to do so. My question in this case, can Buddhism be the practical aspect of other religions which help their believers to achieve their spiritual and religious ideals without converting them? And can we subsequently dissociate Buddhism practices from their dogmatic and theoretical aspects?
So, yes, indeed. I mean, certainly many Christians and, Hindus and others have learned how to practice loving kindness meditations, and also this breathing in the darkness and breathing out the light, taking on others' suffering and giving them healing things like this. So to cultivate unconditional universal love for all beings does not require any particular religious tradition. I mean, to develop love and kindness, it is a universal need, whether we believe in religion or don't believe in religion. And so Buddhism has techniques for developing loving kindness and compassion and joy in the happiness of others. There are specific ways to cultivate these qualities. So this is what I meant, that, they don't just tell you you should be kind and loving. They give all sorts of methods for how to do that, which is useful for everybody as human beings, how to cultivate the goodness in our own hearts, right? And so this is very important. And also we can, nowadays, especially mindfulness and, meditation on how to calm the mind and develop attention is taught everywhere. Certainly in the West nowadays, it's taught in schools, it's taught in prisons, it's taught even in the military and in big organizations like Google. I mean, they're not trying to get people to attain liberation, but they are trying to lower their stress levels. So many people don't even know that these are actually traditional Buddhist practices, because they are given in a secular environment, but nonetheless it helps the mind to learn how to become more aware, more conscious, more present. It's helpful for anybody. I mean, it's nothing to do with being, a Buddhist. It's just with being a well-balanced and healthy human being. How to have a healthy mind, how to have a mind which is clear and a heart which is open. So this development of loving awareness is useful for everybody. And you could say it's Buddhism's gift to the world. It's not, and nowhere are they saying you have to be a Buddhist in order to practice this. These are practices which they have used for millennia. They really work. Here, try it. And it will make you a better person, a better Christian, better Muslim, better Hindu, better human being.
All these meditations and techniques of mindfulness are from Buddhism, Jetsunma?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, they're very, very clearly set down. There are certain sutras which explain it in exquisite detail, but even the basic ideas behind it can be of benefit for people. Just learning how to learn to be more present, more aware, and at the same time to open the heart and to feel the empathy for everyone's suffering. That we recognize, just as I wish to be happy and not suffer, you also would rather be happy and not suffer. I mean, everybody would rather feel okay rather than not feel okay. And that includes animals who certainly would rather feel okay and not suffer. Who wants to suffer? So that feeling that I would rather feel good extends out towards all beings. You recognize that we have that in common, that we all would rather feel okay about everything than not feel okay. So we wish that for others, and we do what we can to make others feel better and not create more problems because of the negativities in our mind. The negativities like our anger and greed and jealousy hurt us as well as hurting others. And so they are really like something, a black cloud, which obscures the sun. So there are also many methods for how to deal with our anger, how to deal with our greed and our jealousy. You know, there are practices which one can undergo to train the mind. We have to train the mind.
Jetsunma, our own negativity hurt us also, not only.
Mostly. We think that it's justified and it's okay, but actually speaking, if we're feeling angry or resentful or jealous or full of lust and desire, it's not a happy, peaceful mind. It's a very disturbed mind. In Sanskrit, it's called klesha. And klesha means something which afflicts you, which hurts you, like a very hot sun, which burns you. So these negative emotions lead to a mind state which is full of unrest and you know,
Jetsunma, Jacques, apparemment, elle est disconnectée.
Elle a visiblement une coupure d'Internet. On va attendre un petit peu.
Oui,
De toute façon,
oui.
on doit devoir réfléchir tranquillement.
Ouais.
Voilà.
Comme d'habitude.
Oui. Ben voilà, elle est
We are
disparue, c'est
waiting.
normal, puis elle va réapparaître.
We are waiting Jetsunma to become again. ننتظر أن تعود. يبدو أن انقطع الإرسال عندها. En attendant, Jacques, donc, comment vous appréciez, quel est votre point de vue
J'ai bien aimé, et je vais mettre spécialement cette interview sur l'annonce de cette interview aussi sur mon site pour comment les réponses, comment gérer cette violence des nouvelles et du monde. Et je pense que c'est très pratique ce qu'elle dit. Et par exemple, elle dit ne regardez pas les nouvelles qui donnent juste des échanges coup par coup, mais passez plus de temps à envoyer de l'énergie positive au monde. Voilà, ok.
Welcome to be back. Please, your micro.
Open your mind, open your mic. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Voilà.
Back with you.
Okay.
Resurrected.
Thanks to be back.
Yeah, we're having a storm outside, so that's why the electricity and the online connection is a bit dodgy.
In India, like in Lebanon, same situation. Always.
So you take it as it comes.
Yes.
I have an expert sitting next to me, so he's been helping to get us connected again.
Okay. Jetsunma, my question number 10, concerning the purpose of meditation. You say in page 104, you say, the essential purpose of meditation is to create an awareness and knowledge of self that enables us to break our habits and respond to situations with greater openness. My question, how do we break habits that are so deeply rooted in ourselves and perhaps since our birth? And how long can it possibly take to proceed?
Well, of course, we are deeply habituated since childhood, and from a Buddhist perspective, maybe from past lives also. So, you know, some of our habits are very deep in our psyche, there's no doubt. But nonetheless, according even to neuroscience, our neural pathways are they're still plastic, and they can be changed and they can be reworked. So, you know, if we consider habits like a super highway, right? Which we always go down that highway. If something annoys us, we get angry.
Yeah.
If we see something we like, we want it, right? So this is, it seems like instinctual. So that's like this super highway. But then when we see that our anger and our greed does not bring us happiness and contentment, creates a lot of problems, and we don't want that anymore. We want to be more patient and kind. We want to be more content and appreciative and not endlessly greedy. Then we can decide, okay, we're going to go on a different road, right? We're going to go on a new track. And at first, when we walk on that road, because it's never been walked on before, we're trying to be patient in the face of annoying things and difficult things. Instead of getting angry and irritated, we're going to be patient now. Then, you know, we walk on that path, and then that path becomes, you know, it grows up again immediately. It's like we never walked there. But if we keep walking that way, every time we walk that way, instead of going on the super highway, after a while, we create a path. And then meantime, because the super highway, we're not going on that path, the grass starts to grow up and it becomes disused, right? So we ourselves have to determine that, and it can be done. It can be done. You know, they did this experiment on ordinary people. They just got a group of ordinary people off the street, and they showed them video clips of very disturbing things. And they were, you know, tracking it. They were neuroscientists. And they saw that immediately that part of the brain to do with anger and fear and also these kind of very negative states shone bright, bright, bright. People got very upset and aroused and angry. And then they started teaching these people loving kindness meditation. And they did it like every day for not that long, but, you know, because they're ordinary people, they can't meditate long. But for a certain time, every day they sat there and they did these very formal loving kindness meditation, sending love to yourself, then to those you love, neutral people, people you don't like, and then all the world. And then after a few weeks, only a few weeks, they tested them again and showed them again clips of things which would make you upset and angry. And to their astonishment, all these people, that part of the brain to do with anger and upset did not shine up. And the part of the brain to do with love and compassion and so forth shone brightly, brightly. So in just a short time, their neural pathways had completely changed. Their whole habit of being upset by something which makes you angry had transformed. And they were just ordinary people. I mean, and another example, which we were talking about yesterday, somebody said that they had a big issue with anger. They got very angry very quickly. So they went again for a retreat on loving kindness. And at the end of the retreat, they thought, oh, that's a lot of bollocks. You know, what a total waste of time that was. And they went out, leaving the retreat, and then they were in a car park. And just as they were about to park, another car came in and took their place. And their immediate response was, oh, may you be well and happy. And they couldn't believe it. How could it be? They should be blowing their horn and screaming and shouting. And it wasn't. Their first response was to feel happy that that person had got that good parking spot. And he felt happy for him. So the point is that we can change. Of course we can change. And the Buddha himself said, we can change. If we could not change, I would not ask you to change. But since we can, I say, please change. But like anything, it takes time. If you want to learn to play an instrument, you know, it takes time to learn how to play the instrument. If you want to learn to play golf, you know, you can't immediately hit all the, you know, balls into the right holes right away. It takes practice. You know, anybody, anywhere. You just go over and over and over until finally it becomes instinctive. There was a monk in our monastery who was very, just so loving. Everybody adored him. And he was like the schoolmaster for the children, the little monks, and they all just loved him. They were all just always hugging him, and his eyes just beamed love. And then somebody told me that in Tibet, when he was a young monk, he was so angry and vicious and difficult that they said to him, either you leave the monastery or you go into retreat and learn to be a yogi. So then he went into retreat. And because he had to work so hard on transforming his anger into love, he became more loving than an ordinary person who never needs to, you know, it's just very average about being angry, you know. And so he became just radiant with love. He transformed. Of course we can transform, but it takes work, like any skill. You just don't, I mean, even Mozart couldn't just sit down and play the piano right away. He had to learn. He had teachers. So, you know, if we are determined, if we see the negative results of having all these poisons in the mind, and we determine to change, we can do it. But we have to really want it. And however many times we fall down, we just pick ourselves up again. And we don't give up. Right? Yeah. Like a little child learning how to walk, right? They walk one step, two steps, fall down. Then they pull themselves up. Then they walk another 2 steps, fall down, pull themselves up. They never think, I can't walk. I will never walk. I'm just a baby. I'm always going to crawl. Crawling is my nature. Right? I was born crawling and that's how it's going to be. I will never learn how to walk. They don't think like that. They look at other people who can walk and they say, if they can do it, I can do it. So if we look at people who have really good nature, good heart, we can think they have good heart. My heart is naturally good. It's just that I don't see it because it's covered over. But it's there, waiting to be discovered. I can do. If others can do it, I can do it.
Jetsunma, in the same context of meditation, you say in your book in page 135, it's my question number 11. You said shamatha is nothing else than that, to accomplish everything we do with all our mind, not by thinking about something else, but by being completely there. My question, but therein lies the great problem, keeping the attention here and there. So how do we achieve this? For example, do we have to give up our desires to achieve this, as we are always thinking about our desires?
You know, learning to be mindful and attentive is just a matter of bringing the mind into the present moment. That's all. So like you take a simple action like cleaning your teeth or shaving or drinking tea, and we relax the mind and give our attention to the action, right? Without thinking about the action. Now I'm drinking a cup of tea, just knowing as we're drinking the cup of tea, and without judging it, you know, just knowing it in that moment. Being so. Just be with the action, right? Drink tea to drink tea without planning at the same time while we're drinking the tea, thinking what we're going to do next, right? I mean, so often, even if you have a delicious meal, the first mouthful or two, wow, this is really nice. And then we're talking or we're thinking of something else. Next thing you know, the plate is empty, right? We haven't even enjoyed something pleasurable. What to speak of something, you know, so when the mind is distracted, which is mostly, that's when desires and aversions arise. Or I want this, or I don't want this, you know. But if we're completely present and aware, then even when things come, whatever comes up, we are not, even if desire or aversion comes up, we don't follow it, right? We can let it go. And then the mind is very open and free and present. So that's what it's about. And so shamatha is for helping us to develop the ability to stay attentive to what is happening in the moment. Instead of getting caught up in the past, in the future, running around in the present, always judging, always chattering to ourselves. You know, so we miss so much because we don't pay attention.
But we are always all the day chattering with ourselves. Thoughts are always there. We are all the day chattering with ourselves.
Yeah,
thoughts are always there.
To learn how to get the mind more quiet, more focused, more clear, and not just allow the, you know, it's not that we don't think, but that we think in a much more orderly manner, not just endlessly back in the past and the future and running around all over, blah, 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 like having a television on in our head, which we have no control over what kind of programs they're going to show on television. So we have an internal television. Well, why are we the slaves to our minds instead of the masters of our mind? That's the point. And so part of meditation, not the only part, but part of it is to gain control over our own mind in the sense that we can, you know, we can see the thoughts which are coming, and if they're negative, we can turn them into something positive. We are able to do that.
Jetsunma, always concerning meditation, you say in page 165, my question number 12, you say meditation is hard work, but it is also the most gratifying act we can accomplish. My question, we have all experienced this hard work. So when do we start to experience meditation as the most rewarding act?
And again, it's like any practice. You want to learn to play the piano. Right? In the beginning, it's just a lot of hard work. You're playing scales. Your fingers hit all the wrong keys. It sounds absolutely terrible and totally unrewarding. But if you keep playing, then practicing again and again, suddenly it just becomes spontaneous and you're actually making a tune, a melody. And as you become the master of your instrument, then it's a great joy to play, right? So it's the same if you're learning to play a sport, if you're learning yoga or any kind of exercise, anything, any skill that we are trying to learn to paint or whatever. In the beginning, it's just a lot of tedium, it's a lot of hard work, it's a struggle. But as we say, practice makes perfect, right? And so therefore, gradually from time to time, the practice begins to become more effortless and natural, even if for a short time, and then the ego takes over again. But, you know, as the Dalai Lama says, never give up. That's the point. We have lifetimes of distraction. So of course there's going to be resistance at the beginning. Of course it's going to be difficult. So, but don't give up. Don't keep, if you're learning meditation, don't do too long. You know, keep your sessions short at the beginning so the mind doesn't get tired. And then you suddenly, for a short time, you feel, oh, yes, it's all coming together. And then it falls apart again. But, you know, you keep working at it like any skill. I mean, I don't know why if we think that learning to play a musical instrument, which is mostly just using your fingers, is so difficult, and that learning how to be, you know, the mind should be simple, when the mind is a million times more subtle than just the fingers. But it's the most worthwhile thing we can possibly do because we live within our mind. That's where we live. And so to have a well-ordered, tamed, and happy mind is the most precious thing we could possibly give to ourselves and to others. Because then we're, much easier to live with. The world is in a mess because it is controlled by people with uncontrolled minds.
Mhm.
I mean, you look at all the politicians, their minds are totally out of control. They are dominated by their greed, their desire for their egoic promotion, by their anger and their, all the jealousies of others, competition, desire for control and power. All these very negative emotions are in control of their mind, and they are controlling this planet. That's why we're in a mess.
That's
We
why
don't have those, wise statesmen. We're run by a bunch of idiots. And we allow them power.
so this war is due to this mind of politicians.
Of course. I mean, they want power, they want control, they want conquest, they want to promote themselves. They think they're the great dictator. And so, they gather with them people who, have that kind of mind frame, and then they control everything. I mean, you can see it all the time. Are they wise? Are they compassionate? Are they good people? Are they helping anybody? No, they're promoting themselves. Their ego is vast. So that is an example of what not to do. And how if we learn how to deal with our mind and have a well-tamed mind, the Buddha said, let the wise man tame his mind. A well-tamed mind brings happiness. Happiness to oneself, happiness to others. These politicians are not bringing happiness to anybody. Where's the happiness in all this?
Jetsunma, concerning anger, you say in page 163, it is my question number 13. You said, drop the object
Oui,
of
j'ai
your
oublié de te
anger.
dire qu'aujourd'hui, c'était la Sainte Ida. Oh, ben,
He's dropped down.
Sorry, concerning,
Yeah.
so drop the object of your anger and look at the anger itself. Where is it? How does it feel? Just be with what you feel. Don't judge anything. My question, do you mean how we feel anger in our body? And what exactly is non-judgmental?
So yeah, you can look in the body. If you're feeling very angry, the muscles get tense. You can feel a tightness in certain places. And also looking in the mind, in one's heart. How does it feel at this moment with this anger? Where is it? And how is it we feeling it? And to be non-judgmental means not wishing at this moment that it should go away. I'm a bad person because I'm feeling anger, or thinking it's right because I should feel anger about what somebody else did, So this is like constantly scratching a sore, right? We are endlessly regurgitating in our mind our resentment, our anger, our justification. It's like if we have a wound, then we're endlessly scratching it so that it bleeds more, right? But instead of that, we just observe the feeling as it arises, the anger or whatever feeling we have, and we look at it with the eyes of compassion, right? We bring to the darkness of anger the light of our compassion, right? And our light of our awareness. We don't suppress it, but we allow it to come and we observe it. And listen to what the anger, why is the anger there? What is it saying to us with kind eyes? I mean, there's no point in being angry with the anger, you know, so we bring it into the light of our consciousness. And often if we just bring it into the light of our consciousness and we're really aware of those feelings of themselves, they begin to dissolve. It's not a matter of suppressing the feeling or denying it or feeding it, you know, pouring more oil onto the fire, but seeing it nakedly. Just bringing it up, looking straight at it. That in itself can transform it without us needing to do anything else. But not get carried away, or try to push it down and pretend that's not what we're feeling, because spiritual people don't feel like that. We should be open and accepting, but at the same time, really look straight at it and listen to what it's telling us. With love. Because all these demons of the mind need our love. Love doesn't mean that we condone it, but it means that we understand where it's coming from and we allow it to come up so that it can dissolve into a deeper level of awareness and wisdom.
Jetsunma, concerning thoughts and emotions, you say in page 164, you say, when an emotion or a thought arises, we immediately jump on it. We worry about it. We don't let it go. This mechanism has become so natural that it feels almost impossible to get out of it. My question, so is it possible to end this continual identification with thoughts and emotions, and how?
Well, you know, the point is that we need to really look at the mind, right? Normally when we are thinking or feeling, we're swept along. I mean, the traditional example is a river, that we are completely immersed in the river of our thoughts and feelings, and we're swept along by that. So what we need to do is to step back onto the bank and just observe the river going by. We're not trying to dam the river. We're not trying to stop the thoughts and feelings, but we're trying to know them. So in that way, we lose our identification with our thoughts and feelings, this feeling that this is who I am, these are my thoughts. And my thoughts and my memories are true because that's what I think, right? And this is why people go to war, right? They have certain thoughts and feelings and beliefs, and that it has to be true because that's what I believe, right? And a belief is just a thought. So we lose that sense of identification by observing, by stepping back and being aware of the thoughts as they stream by without being caught up in them, right? So we begin to recognize that these are just mental impulses. They're not me, they're not mine. They're just streaming past. And that gives us a great relief because yes, we have thoughts, but we are not the thoughts. If we were the thoughts, we wouldn't be able to observe them. But we can observe them. We can step back and observe. And then we begin to be free from our thoughts, right? We are not immersed in them anymore. We're not suffocating in them because we can just see them as thoughts. That's a useful thought. That's a stupid thought, but it's just a thought. They're like bubbles, right? They're very bright and shiny, but you just go click and they're empty. They're not solid. They're not real. They're just mental impulses going by.
Jetsunma, this identification with thoughts, it is due to habit or due to the ego? What is the cause?
Yeah, I mean, the ego takes over, but the ego itself is just a habit. You know, it's just a conglomeration of thought moments which stick together and like to think that they are self-existing and real and enduring and solid, and something there at the center, which is guiding everything, controlling everything. But when we really look into the mind, we can't find that. It's not there. It's all just an illusion which our mental capacity has created for us, but it's really not there at all. And we identify because we don't know how to step back and observe the thoughts as thoughts. So then we become the thoughts. And this is what meditation is really about. I mean, the first part of meditation is just to get the mind workable, right? We learn how to become more aware, how to become more mindful, how to make the mind more quiet, how to be able to hone our attention. But that's all so that we can get to work on understanding what is the mind, which is where we live, right? What is a thought? Where does it come from? Where does it go to? Who is thinking, right? We don't ask. We think and think and think and believe what we think. And we never question any of that. So meditation is about really looking into the mind itself, really looking into consciousness. What is consciousness?
Jetsunma, my last question. In speaking of fear, you say, the last question is number 16. You say, page 171. It is quite common to be afraid when we meditate. The ego is afraid that these games will be discovered and it panics. My question, what are these games of the ego you are talking about? Our ego is therefore an entity that plays against ourselves?
So, as I said, the ego is really just a collection of mind movements which cluster to form something that seems like an entity until it is investigated by our own consciousness. When we investigate and look for this ego, this I at the center, like a spider in the middle of a web, when we look for it, the ego, it pretends that it's a separate, unchanging entity, unique, constituting an enduring self. There's me, right? But when we enter, truly, when we enter deeply into meditation, then we begin to see that this self cannot be found, however much we search. And so in order for us not to discover that actually the ego is just a fabrication of our consciousness, fear arises because the ego is afraid to be that the whole thing is going to dissolve. So one of the barriers that our mind sets up very interestingly is this sense of fear. And so when people often, when they start to meditate, all this kind of very existential fear arises, they don't even know what they're afraid of. But because of it, they don't want to go any further. And so they become afraid of the fear. So the point is not to be afraid of the fear, to allow the fear to arise, to look at it, to face it, and then of itself it dissolves. The whole problem is that we're caught in the grip of something which has never existed from the very beginning. But we don't look, we don't observe, we don't search. We just take the surface. It's like we're living on the surface of the ocean, with the waves going up, the waves going down. Sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're miserable. We're just caught up on the surface and we don't go down deeper and deeper and deeper into the ocean to see what's really there. But the surface waves could not exist if it was not for the ocean supporting them. And in the ocean, there's all sorts of things going on, right? You get nice, friendly dolphins and beautiful golden fish and all sorts of nice things, but you also get sharks and killer whales. And that is what brings up the fear in the psyche, all this stuff which is down there and which has never been brought up to the surface. But even the sharks can be friends. Recently, we saw this video of this woman. I think this is very important for the whole idea of how we deal with what looks like something frightening in our psyche. This woman, she goes into the ocean and she meets with the sharks. And, the sharks have all these teeth and, and this video clip was showing what she does. She puts her whole arm into the mouth of the shark to take out hooks which have been caught in their gut because of fishermen. They swallow the hook and then they get away, but the hook is still inside them and they can't get rid of it. And so she puts her arm right inside and manipulates it so that she gets the hook out. And there she is with her arm right inside this shark. And all around her are other sharks who are waiting for her to help them. So what people think of as the most awful thing that could happen is that you would get stuck surrounded by sharks with your arm in a shark's mouth is actually an act of tremendous compassion. And those sharks would never harm her because they know that she has great compassion for them and wants to help them. And so this is also like the darkness inside our consciousness. If we bring it out and show it compassion, it will transform into our greatest aid. So there's nothing to fear.
Okay.
Compassion conquers everything.
Okay.
That's a good way to finish.
Yeah.
Compassion conquers everything.
We are in perfect tune for the second time. All the questions are all answered, and just in the time of 1 hour and 50 minutes, not more, not else. So do you have a last word to say before leaving us, Jetsunma, in this difficult period of war? And people they have fear. You are talking about not fear, but people, especially in Europe, they have a lot of fear about this war.
Well, as I say, there is already so much psychic pollution in the world. We talk about physical pollution, and that's there. But worse than the physical pollution is the psychic pollution of our thoughts, of anger, of paranoia, of fear, of all these negativities which are being sent out into the universe. If we could just see those, we would realize how dark they're surrounding the planet, and not to plug into that negative energy. Please don't plug into that negative energy. Send out the counterforce of love and compassion. Light will always overcome darkness. However long the darkness has been there, you turn on the light and the darkness disappears. This we have to really, really accentuate, that the lightness of love, of peace, of compassion, of good thoughts, to counteract all the dark thoughts which are surrounding us on this planet at this time. Not to get into that energy, that dark energy, but to send out light energy. Prayer really is very powerful. Really is very powerful. And we should believe in our, I'm not saying it's going to stop the war, but it will definitely help to lighten that dark cloud of negativity which is surrounding our world at this time. Okay. We have to give in to the belief in goodness.
Okay. Before the Jetsunma leave us, we said that we are managing with her to do some interview also on Tibetan tradition with some Lama of her monastery. So in a short time, we will announce this new also interview about Tibetan tradition. And Jetsunma, we see you also in our next interview in 2 months. It should be so in June, I think. In summer.
Okay.
Thanks.
See you there. And I will try to connect you with Kempoloso Zangpo.
Okay, okay, waiting.
Thank you,
Thank-
my dear. Thank you, Jacques. Thank you, translators. All
Thank-
you wonderful translators out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Jetsunma. Docteur Jacques Vigne.
Oui,
Alors, voilà, Jetsunma, elle te remercie. Et
enfin, c'est surtout toi qui as préparé toutes ces questions. C'est pas si facile hein, de trouver des questions. Il faut lire
et
aussi.
on
ce qu'elle
arrive
dit
maintenant
pour-
juste à temps, c'est-à-dire 1h30 avec toutes les questions sont posées. Donc,
Oui, oui.
alors, tu étais en train de nous raconter ton impression et maintenant, c'est le temps de développer un peu tes idées à propos de cet entretien.
Oui, ben, la première chose, c'est qu'on pense souvent, enfin, où les gens ordinaires pensent que la tradition, c'est des vieux trucs, mais là, on voit que ça s'applique à la situation présente, parce qu'effectivement, on est tous pollués par ces images de guerre, ces nouvelles de guerre, ces propos de guerre, mais elle dit, voilà, comment s'y prendre pour améliorer les choses sans être pollué. Et c'est ça la question. Il y en a
Et
qui…
tu as remarqué, Jacques, qu'elle a dit, et regardez qu'est-ce qu'elle a dit à la fin. Prière, 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 ne plongez pas dans la négativité, ne prenez pas position en quelque sorte même,
Alors, elle
avec
dit,
l'un
bon,
contre l'autre.
oui, c'est ça, ne pas être partisan, ne pas rentrer dans la boule d'obscurité, de ténèbres, mais croire que notre action que notre prière a une action mesurée, hein, c'est-à-dire on n'est pas tout puissant, on ne va pas stopper la guerre comme ça, mais nos prières vont mettre plus de lumière. Hein.
En même temps,
elle aime
elle est réaliste, mais en même temps, elle
nous
donne
dit
beaucoup d'espoir en quelque sorte.
Oui, puis comment travailler en pratique, ça c'est très précieux. Et elle insiste aussi sur le double sens du mot light en anglais, qui veut dire à la fois léger et lumière. Hein, donc quand elle parle de lightness, ça peut être à la fois la légèreté et la qualité de luminosité. Et ça c'est important, et donc elle a bien insisté, hein, il y a des ténèbres et il faut mettre de la luminosité dedans, et il y a de la pesanteur et il faut mettre de la légèreté dedans. Et donc, c'est cette boule il y a toujours une boule d'obscurité autour de notre planète, mais quand il y a des périodes de guerre comme ça, dont tout le monde parle, qui inondent aussi nos foyers par les écrans, notre vie personnelle par les actualités sur le téléphone mobile, il faut savoir donc se défendre, de ne pas avoir une curiosité malsaine à savoir quel a été le mauvais coup d'un côté ou de l'autre jour après jour, mais bon, s'informer un minimum, mais sinon, beaucoup travailler à envoyer des pensées lumineuses et légères pour dissoudre à la fois les ténèbres et la lourdeur. Et donc, c'est quelque chose où on préfère consommer des nouvelles pour pouvoir, par ego, montrer aux autres qu'on est plus informé qu'eux. Mais au fait, on sait qu'il y a cette guerre, on connaît les grandes lignes. Et de toute façon, on ne pourra jamais rentrer dans tous les détails parce que c'est infini. Il y a un moment où il faut s'arrêter donc et commencer à être actif et envoyer, nous, des ondes positives. Si on fait que absorber des choses négatives, il y a notre conscience profonde qui nous dit que ce n'est pas juste parce qu'on ne fait rien et du coup, on le culpabilise, on déprime. Ça donne un cercle vicieux. Donc, il faut faire quelque chose. Et moi-même, au début, je n'ai pas fait systématiquement prendre et donner pour cette guerre de l'Ukraine. Mais maintenant, je le fais plus et ça me donne de la force pour, voilà, et parce que je sens que je suis actif. Sinon, j'avais la culpabilité de quelqu'un qui voit des choses terribles et qui fait rien.
Et tu
Donc, il faut sortir de cette culpabilité.
toujours, c'est quand même quelque chose de très, en quelque sorte, signifiant de voir quelqu'un en pleine période de guerre qui te sourit, qui est optimiste en quelque sorte et qui va au-delà des peurs quotidiennes.
Oui, oui. Et puis, il faut voir que derrière ces peurs qu'on répand, il y a des manipulations, hein, il y a plein de gens qui cherchent plus de pouvoir, les politiciens, les marchands d'armes, les différents partis. Et donc, il faut être conscient de ça et savoir sortir la propagande. Ça est la raison et c'est très important. Donc, sortir la propagande, ça peut être aussi chercher des types d'informations parallèles qui tombent pas dans le complotisme et qui soient critiques justement parce que les politiciens sont dans le complotisme aussi, parce qu'ils créent des peurs, etc., pour pouvoir en tirer le bénéfice. Donc, il faut bien comprendre tout ça et savoir alterner les sources d'information et surtout ne pas être tout le temps sur l'information. Parce que
les mensonges, elle a beaucoup insisté sur les mensonges qu'on est en train de diffuser à travers les masses médias et les nouvelles et surtout les leaders politiques.
Oui, et alors j'ai eu une rencontre très intéressante, et c'était avant-hier, à la messe des Rameaux avec le chœur grégorien de Paris dans une belle abbaye médiévale de Bretagne. Il y avait une des membres du chœur très active qui a un chœur grégorien en Belgique. Et alors son métier, c'est de déchiffrer les écorces de bouleau où il y a des textes en vieux russe. Et à travers ça, donc, c'est une source, donc un peu comme l'épigraphie sur les pierres, mais chez les Russes, c'est sur les écorces de bouleau. Et on en a des très anciennes. Et donc, elle fait des recherches là-dessus. Sauf que du jour au lendemain, avec cette guerre, elle peut plus aller en Russie pour faire ses recherches. Et même ses crédits sont compromis parce que qui va donner les crédits pour des recherches pour les Russes en ce moment, en Occident. Donc, c'est un grand changement pour elle. Mais en même temps, elle m'a dit des choses très intéressantes. Et par exemple, elle lit la presse en russe parce qu'elle sait lire russe, donc elle peut trouver des choses sur Internet en russe, etc. Et elle lit la presse, bien sûr, en français et en anglais. Et elle voit que c'est deux mondes complètement différents. C'est deux sphères de pensée complètement différentes. Alors, on pourra dire oui, mais les Russes, c'est purement la propagande, mais il faut savoir que les Russes disent ça de nous aussi. Et il y a certainement du vrai dans ce que les Russes disent de nous. Voilà, donc le fait pour elle de lire les deux versions, c'est aussi une leçon et ça la rend plus prudente.
Okay. Et donc là, je tiens à signaler que en l'accord avec Jetsunma, on est en train d'organiser une interview, un entretien avec un lama de son couvent sur la tradition spirituelle tibétaine. Donc, ça doit être d'ici un peu de temps, 2 semaines, peut-être 3 semaines. Et en plus, il y aura bien sûr dans deux mois l'interview numéro 8. Maintenant, comme d'habitude, tu vas traduire cette interview, n'est-ce pas?
Oui, et alors là, donc, j'ai remis à 18h04 les 4 dossiers dans l'ordre, parce qu'avant, j'avais fait des doubles, je ne travaille pas sur mon ordinateur.
Quel genre de dossier tu étais en train de mettre?
Alors, donc là, à 18h04, si vous regardez dans le chat à 18h04, vous avez les 4 dossiers. Donc, il y a première et seconde partie en français et en anglais, donc ça fait 4 dossiets. Voilà. Hein, donc, oui, pour l'interview 6, hein, c'est tous les dossiers relus par Geneviève jusqu'à hier.
Tu ne m'as pas encore envoyé ces
Non,
dossiers.
ça, je ne t'ai pas encore envoyé, mais je peux te l'envoyer directement, mais tu peux le récupérer aussi sur le chat. Si tu veux.
Le chat, autrefois, tu m'as dit que je peux récupérer la déclaration de Tenzin Palmo, mais je ne l'ai pas pu. Je n'ai pas pu.
D'accord, d'accord. Bon, ben, je vais te les envoyer directement. Et voilà, parce que
donc
c'est grâce à Thibault.
Entendons-nous, mardi prochain, il y aura une session de traduction?
Oui, oui, comme d'habitude, j'ai noté. Hein, j'ai noté. Donc, je pense que la dernière fois, on a vu quelques soucis parce que je ne sais plus où est-ce que j'étais. Mais normalement, mardi prochain, je serai dans un endroit tranquille. Donc, ça devrait bien marcher.
Donc, on peut annoncer que mardi prochain à
17h30, 19h30, voire 20h.
18h30 heure de Beyrouth, c'est-à-dire 17h30 heure de Paris.
Oui, c'est ça, 17h30 heure de Paris avec en tenant compte du décalage donc d'été, hein, voilà. Donc 17h30
donc, ça
heure de Paris.
sera la traduction de l'entretien, celui-là, numéro 7, avec Dr Jacques Vigne. Et comme d'habitude, le mercredi, autrefois, tu n'étais pas là. Tu seras là mercredi prochain?
Alors, oui, c'est ça. Donc, mercredi prochain, normalement, je suis là. Oui, je suis à Paris, là, tranquillement.
on dirait que tu es dans un bureau de réunion de politiciens. C'est exactement comme le bureau des gouvernements, là.
C'est le
Avec
bureau
les
d'assurance de
tables,
mon
les
frère. Voilà.
ordinateurs, comme si c'est comme si tu es en train d'organiser la guerre.
Des ventes d'armes à haut niveau.
Okay,
Non, c'est le bureau de mon frère d'assurance. Et c'est vrai qu'il est joli, il est ancien. Et voilà, donc je suis là en ce moment. Donc, et puis, comme mon Internet n'était pas bon, j'ai été directement sur son ordinateur. Voilà, lui, il n'est pas là, il est à la semaine sainte en grégorien.
Entendu, donc je crois que c'est suffisant maintenant. Déjà,
Oui.
ça fait presque
Donc, tout le
2
monde
heures.
pense à récupérer les dossiers à 18h04 de tout le dossier numéro 6.
Et je
donc,
t'enverrai de mon côté là les questions en français avec l'introduction de.
oui, ça envoie vite. Et puis, envoie-les à Thibaut en particulier. Je vais te donner son adresse, tu peux lui envoyer directement. C'est lui qui fait le travail de transcription et ça l'aidera d'avoir les questions en français et en anglais. Et puis aussi, quand je mets en ligne sur mon site les textes, c'est bien d'avoir les questions en français et en anglais. Donc, je l'ai pour les 6. Donc, je vais tout mettre en ligne en même temps. Mais pour le 7, avant même que ce soit transcrit, on peut déjà mettre les questions. Comme ça, les gens se repéreront mieux dans quelle partie de l'interview
Oui, d'accord.
on est.
Ben, tu auras ce soir les questions. Envoie-moi par email ou sur WhatsApp l'email, l'adresse email de Thibaut. Je lui enverrai aussi
Oui, parce que donc, on remercie particulièrement Thibaut qui fait tout le boulot de transcription. Donc, c'est long, hein, mais c'est bien.
Oui,
Parce
et surtout ces 2 derniers entretiens maintenant, c'est assez lent avec plus
Oui. C'est pour ça qu'on a continué. Moi-même, j'ai
économiser
tardé
du temps pour
pour
gagner
relire
du
les
temps.
traductions.
Ce que je fais
Mais,
pour gagner. Ouais,
oui.
vas-y, sorry.
J'en ai fait, bon, dès que j'avais un moment de libre, j'en faisais. Et puis, finalement, Geneviève a relu la dernière partie aussi des traductions tout récemment. Et normalement, Nathalie Brochard doit relire la partie anglaise. Elle n'a pas encore fait, mais je pense qu'elle est correcte déjà comme ça, tout à fait compréhensible. Mais elle corrigera des petits trucs. Nathalie Brochard est une amie franco-américaine qui a enseigné l'anglais à Monaco en particulier. Et donc, on se connaît un petit peu. Elle a accepté de faire ça. Je vais sans doute la voir. Elle va venir à la retraite grégorienne aussi. Voilà.
Et comme tu as, je ne sais pas si tu as bien remarqué, moi, je commence toujours là depuis, ça fait maintenant 3 entretiens. Je commence 5 minutes avant pour que le mot que je prononce, introduction, ne soit pas dans 1h30. Comme ça, on a eu 1h40 à peu près d'entretien avec les introductions, avec les.
Très bien.
C'est des entretiens assez denses.
Oui.
Voilà.
Et donc, oui, cette première partie, j'étais en train de changer d'ordinateur. Donc, le mot d'introduction, tu pourrais me l'envoyer en dossier audio, enfin, ou d'une manière ou d'une autre, mais peut-être pas fait de séparation. Mais parce que, voilà, je ne l'ai pas enregistré. J'ai enregistré à partir du moment de la première question. Là, j'ai enregistré. Mais le mot d'introduction, je n'ai pas enregistré.
Tu
voilà.
parles de cet entretien, n'est-ce pas?
Cet entretien, oui, c'est celui-ci.
Oui, tu l'auras ce soir. Donc, les questions et introductions en français et en anglais.
Très bien. Comme ça, c'est clair.
Et dis-moi, avant d'oublier, avant que je quitte, et pour les dimanches soirs, il y aura, je vais faire un petit entretien sur Zoom. Est-ce que c'est disponible sur ton.
Alors oui, c'est disponible. Le dimanche soir, moi, je fais Instagram, tu vois, et donc jusqu'en tout le mois de mai, et on fait Instagram, et c'est une demi-heure de 18h à 18h30, mais ça n'a rien à voir avec Zoom, donc Zoom est disponible.
OK, entendu. Donc voilà, merci à vous tous. On est arrivé jusqu'à 70, le nombre de présents. Aujourd'hui, vraiment un record.
Oui.
Et je vois avec un grand plaisir, une grande joie que le nombre des intéressés, des gens qui assistent à ces interviews va toujours en augmentant. Revenez que.
Et il faut remercier aussi Fia Brion qui a fait ce gros travail de la liste MailChimp avec 1000 adresses. Et donc, elle peut envoyer maintenant rapidement l'annonce à 1000 personnes différentes. Mais c'était un gros travail à faire, déjà connaître le système Mailchimp, ensuite rentrer les adresses manuellement ou à peu près manuellement, puis tout vérifier, s'occuper des adresses qui rebondissent. Hein, c'est des journées de travail.
Oui,
Et
donc merci à elle, merci à Fia, merci à Geneviève aussi, merci à Régine. Tous ces gens ont participé à bien diffuser l'annonce de cet entretien. Et donc, merci. C'est grâce à eux qu'on a eu ce record de présence.
Et essayez d'être là pour le Kenpo. Si Tenzin Palmo l'a choisi pour nous parler, c'est qu'elle pense que voilà, ce sera pour notre bénéfice et que voilà, il est compréhensible pour nous. Voilà,
Oui, oui, donc
il saura
ça
se mettre à
sera
notre
dans un
niveau.
futur très proche. Je vais dans 2-3 semaines. Et qui sait, probablement, on pourra faire plusieurs entretiens avec lui sur la spiritualité tibétaine. Donc, il va éclairer des côtés que Tenzin Palmo n'a pas le temps de développer dans ses entretiens.
Oui, tout à
Des
fait.
choses de base, élémentaires de la spiritualité tibétaine.
Ou peut-être subtil, hein, peut-être aussi des points techniques aussi qui peuvent être intéressants, de méditation, de visualisation, tout ça. Oui, oui, ça peut être très riche.
Voilà. Bonsoir à tout le monde et donc à mardi prochain et mercredi. Donc mardi prochain, on aura la traduction de l'entretien numéro 7 et mercredi prochain, on va continuer nos cours comme d'habitude avec Dr. Jacques.
Très bien. Namasté, au revoir à tous.
Namaste.
Au revoir Thibaut.